And if we can have somebody go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting and tonight's agenda.
This is David, I'll move.
Great, thank you. A second?
I'll second, Sandy.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing no opposition, we will go ahead and approve the minutes and the agenda for tonight. Great, okay. So with that, we're gonna hand it over to Mayani to walk us through the presentation on the SERP. So with that, Mayani, go ahead.
Okay, so hopefully you can hear me better now. Good evening, everyone. So as I said earlier, we are about to reach an important milestone with regards to the implementation of the program. So tonight we're going to be discussing our phase 1 proposal, which is going to include strategies that we believe are ready to be implemented, and those strategies are going to be presented to our board in November. And we're also going to be discussing the draft SERP, which is going to be submitted to our board. So everyone, we should maybe check that, make sure everyone is mute, so that to avoid any background noise. That would be great.
Mayani, can you repeat?
Okay, so let's see. Can everybody hear me better now? Good?
Yeah, Mayani, can you repeat that last part that you said you broke up? Pretty bad. So phase 1 proposal, we're going to go over, but then the draft, and then you broke up so bad I couldn't hear.
Sure, no problem. So basically, yeah, so tonight, this presentation is going to focus on 2 aspects of the program. One, we're going to be discussing our phase 1 proposal, which is going to include strategies that we believe have been fully developed and will be presented to our board in November of this year. And then also we're going to be discussing the draft SERP that we've been working on. And the draft SERP is going to be submitted to our board as an update, as a draft. So those are the main discussions that we're going to be covering tonight. Is that good? Okay. So I think we're ready to, okay, so you've seen this slide a few times. It's essentially the SERP timeline. So just really quickly, the Portside Environmental Justice Community was selected under this program last year. We've been developing the community emission reduction plan. And now, the milestone that I was talking about earlier is going to be, going to our board, to the APCD board, to propose our phase 1 strategies. And phase 1 strategies is going to include the strategies that we believe that have been fully developed and are ready to be implemented. So it's going to be essentially early implementation strategies. And as part of this proposal, we're also going to be updating our board as to where we're at with regards to the implementation of this project. And this update is going to include the draft SERP that we've been working on. CARB is also going to be updated with regards to where we are in the program. And then next May, that's when we're going to be going back to our board for the full approval of the SERP. And then subsequently, CARB is going to have to approve the plan as well. And then we can start implementation of all the different strategies. So I think we can go to the next slide. So this is just to highlight what phase 1 strategies entail. So essentially, phase 1 strategies are going to be the strategies that are going to be presented to our board on November 18th of this year. And these strategies are the strategies that, again, have been fully developed and are ready to be implemented at this point upon approval from our board. And again, as part of this proposal, we're also going to be updating our board. And part of this update is going to include the draft SERP. So again, you know, we're not going to, the board is not going to be approving the SERP yet, but we're just going to provide an update, which is going to include the draft SERP that we've been working on. Good. So we are ready. To next slide, please. All right. So, so for tonight, you know, I just wanted to highlight, you know, some of the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve tonight. We are going to, again, be discussing the phase 1 strategies, and then we will vote on the, or we request the steering committee to vote on the phase 1 proposal. And then we are going to be discussing the draft SERP. I just wanted to highlight that we're talking about the draft document. And then we're going to be obtaining your input and addressing some pending questions. And then, you know, we will asking the steering committee to vote on this draft document simply because this document is going to be utilized to update our board. Again, it's not the final document yet. We do have 6 months to further develop the document. And so these are the main, outcomes that we're hoping to achieve tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, last meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about the phase 1 proposal. So I think we can go, yes, good. So just to kind of, highlight again, what we are, proposing to be under the phase 1 proposal. I wanted to highlight the different strategies that we are going to be presenting to our board. So these strategies that you see on your screen, they are going to be proposed to our board as phase 1 strategies. And these strategies do need approval from our board. So these strategies include developing and implementing an incident response plan. This plan is going to highlight how the APCD is going to be responding to incidents that have an impact on air quality, for example, a fire. Also, we are proposing to implement a public participation plan just to enhance our community outreach and engagement. We also working with the California Resources Board to quantify and prioritize community health risk within the Portside community. So we wanted to quantify the health risk within the Portside community, and we're working with CARB on that. Next slide, please. We are also working with the steering committee and the California Resources Board to exercise some flexibility with regards to the project that we can fund. You know, I don't know if you know, but we have an incentive program at APCD under which we can fund certain projects. But currently there are some restrictions with regards to what we can fund. And so the purpose of this strategy, B1, is to work with CARB and the steering committee to exercise some flexibility. So the goal is to really meet the community needs when we are funding these projects. So that's what it's about. We also developing and implementing a residential air filtration and monitoring program at the district. Strategy D4 for transparency, the reason you see that is strike through is because we presented this strategy last time as phase 1, but now we are proposing to reword this strategy. This strategy before said that we're proposing to essentially get lease a satellite office for the district within the Portside community, but we are proposing to reword this strategy to say that the goal is that we want to increase our presence in the Portside community. And because ultimately that's what we really wanted to achieve, is to increase our presence. And, we're trying to, find the best way to do that because, now the district, just like other entities, we're looking at our teleworking schedules. So we do have a lot of field inspectors who live in the Portside community, and perhaps we're going to be expanding our teleworking schedule. So we're looking into that to see the best approach. Obviously, we need to be very judicious with regards to how we're spending funding and resources. So all we're saying here is that instead of just saying we're going to lease an office in the portside community, we wanted to really evaluate how we can meet the goal of increasing our presence within the portside community. So I think we're ready for the next slide. So these are the other phase one strategies that we're proposing. Establish an office of environmental justice. I don't know if you know, but our board directed two APCD positions for the purpose of our environmental justice office. But this strategy is still there because under this strategy, we should be developing expectations for this office. We are also, implementing programs to reduce emissions from passenger vehicles. SANDAG is supporting us with this strategy. We are going to enhance our outreach efforts. We are evaluating the feasibility of adopting new rules or revising existing rules. And we are also looking into our supplement environmental project. This is a program that we can fund certain environmental projects with money that we receive when we settle violations with certain entities. We are also evaluating expanding our mobile source program to enforce additional mobile source regulations. We are evaluating our air quality complaint process to determine how we can better serve our communities. Increase our presence in the portside community. That's the strategy that I was talking about before. So again, we're not removing, we're just rewarding. And also evaluating the feasibility of utilizing a portable emission analyzer to verify compliance, evaluating the feasibility of expanding our enforcement of truck idling regulations within the portside community. We know that that's a very important goal for the community. Currently, we're doing bi-weekly inspections in the portside community, but we really wanted to make sure maybe, we needed to look into that to make sure we are in the right areas or we can increase the number of inspections. So we wanted to evaluate that. So those are the strategies that were developed by the district that we're going to be presenting to our board as phase one strategies. In addition to these strategies, we had multiple steering committee members who thankfully stepped up and also proposed these early implementation strategies or phase one strategies. So we're very thankful for that. The Port of San Diego proposed these strategies that you see on your screen, including developing a truck pilot program to promote, electric trucks. Also support dedicated truck route. That's a very important strategy for the community. So the port is supporting this strategy by conducting outreach. Also facilitating upgrading cargo handling equipment. Next slide. Also reduce emissions from ships at berth. These are all strategies, phase one strategies the Port of San Diego is proposing. Reducing emissions from harbor craft and promoting adoption of zero emission technologies by promoting these demonstration events. So those are the strategies that the port is supporting under the phase one proposal. In addition to the port, the shipyards also, proposed phase one strategy. So that's great, to have that under our phase one proposal. And these strategies you see on your screen reduce diesel particulate matter and nitrogen oxide emissions from portable air compressors and other diesel sources at the shipyard. Also reducing emissions from ship repair activities and reduce emissions from shipyard employee transportation. SANDAG is also supporting this strategy. So they are working with the shipyards to support this strategy. So thank you so much, Sarah, for working with the other shipyards and making this happen. Also, U.S. Navy proposed some strategies you see on your screen for under the phase one proposal, also to reduce emissions from ship at berth, promote best practice to reduce emissions from ship repairs, and again, to reduce emissions associated with traffic at the naval base. And again, SANDAG is also proposing to to support that strategy. So again, that's great. We wanted to start the implementation of these strategies as soon as possible. And so even though we have another 6 months to further develop the SERP, if we feel that these strategies are ready to go and can be implemented, we shouldn't waste any time. And again, we want to thank the entities that, propose these phase 1 strategies. That's really important. Also, we are working with other jurisdictions to really discuss other strategies that they're involved with. We have a meeting tomorrow morning, actually, with National City. On Friday, we are meeting with the City of San Diego. Thank you, Ashley, for making that arrangement for us. So, these discussions are going to be very important to make sure that we get support from these jurisdictions to, kind of start, discussing, other strategies that are now under the phase 2 bucket. So with that, I guess I want to see if there are any questions. Sorry, I was running through the slides. So, David wants to see the slides again.
Is there a specific slide, David, or you can unmute?
Yeah, if we can move to the first set. Yeah, from right there. Okay.
Great. So again, a reminder, if folks have a comment they want to make, raise your hand. We'll take comments and questions from the steering committee first, and then we'll, once that's done, we'll take comments from the public. And then once we've wrapped up comments, we will stop and we will vote first on the phase 1 strategies before moving on to the SERP. So great job, Amy. So are there any questions or comments?
I do want to also mention that we've been, obviously, a lot of you have been reaching out and providing comments, and we have revised the chapter 7, which has all the strategies, and, sent out to the steering committee. Also, there's a version available for the public. That is available because, this is just a very high level, review of the strategies.
Action F, I think is,
So F, nothing from F is included under the phase 1 proposal. Again, the phase 1, I just want to make it very clear that the phase 1 strategies, they are not necessarily the most important strategies, but they are the strategies that it's ready to be implemented. So other strategies still need to be further developed, and specifically, working with the jurisdictions, to make sure that, the jurisdictions and the entities that have an implementation role to make sure that they are fully on board and, that they can, working on they can commit to these strategies, which is why these discussions that we're having with, National City and City of San Diego are very important for the purpose of supporting the program.
Great. Okay, so I have a comment from, Jack raised his hand to me in the chat. So we'll take Jack and then to Roman, who has his
Thanks, Danielle. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Maini, I just wanted to ask with regard to action E3, why this wouldn't be a good time to introduce, I think, one of the recommendations that we had submitted with regard to asking the City of San Diego to publicize approved truck routes on their website or wherever possible.
So I don't know if the city can address this comment at this time.
This is Ashley with the City of San Diego. I don't know the extent to which you'd like us to advertise, Jack, and I think that may warrant just an additional conversation with the Transportation and Stormwater Department that oversees that truck route. So I would have some hesitation including it tonight as part of the action that we're going to vote on, but certainly don't want to pass up an opportunity if it seems like something that's not really that big of a lift that we could get some additional stuff that involves some additional stuff.
Thanks, Ashley. I guess what I was, reason I was asking that is this had come up earlier as a very simple communication exercise of reaching out to many of the truck drivers who have no idea that San Diego has an established truck route and has laid it all out on a map or whatever. They just don't know. And maybe the only feasible way is on the city's website. I don't know what the best ways would be, but I think at least starting the process of finding the best way to publicize this change in city policy so that at least the drivers or the drivers' companies will be aware.
Yeah, that's a really good flag. And I think there is an action, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, so I apologize, in the SERP for phase 2 that addresses the truck route. So maybe we could emphasize there that need for that stronger communications element from either the city or APCD or whoever takes that responsibility. But yeah, I think that's a really good, yeah, David says it's in the land use recommendations. That's a good flag, I think, for us.
Great. Okay, thank you. So making a note of that. Also making a reminder to everybody that, as Mayani mentioned, this is a draft SERP. The phase 1 strategies are, can still be modified after the draft. I think today we talked about that just earlier in conversations with the Air District, if there are small changes that are kind of people are okay with, the Air District can incorporate those if we just that are raised today and some of those and talk about them. But if there are other strategies that maybe take more time or need more conversation with the jurisdiction, we will make a list of those and we will make sure to follow up with those at future meetings. And just given that this is a draft SERP, we have some time and some leeway there. So Roman, go ahead. You can unmute and then we'll take David and then we'll take Ted.
Thank you. And Danila, you answered part of my question. But can we talk a little bit about the timeline for phase 1 implementation, right? Like, so this gets taken before the board and let's say it's approved. Can we talk about then that implementation process and how that overlaps with our overall timeline of the SERP? I'm hearing my echo. But yeah, can we just talk about the timeline and how that ties into the SERP that's going to get approved in May? And specifically, if there are changes that are recommended or as we're going through implementation and we see or we discover some things that need to be tweaked or that need to be altered, what that process is going to look like.
So I think, Roman, thank you for your question. So I think that, so the phase 1 strategies that, we decide to propose tonight, we're going to bring those to our board, and so upon board approval, we can start implementing those strategies. If we think that we need to make adjustments, there's going to be an opportunity next May because we're going to go back to our board anyway to approve the entire SERP. And during that hearing, we are able to, bring other things, like say, for example, if we bring something as a phase 1 and the board, makes a decision, we could, we could change the proposal during the next year because we're going to go back to our board anyway, next May. So there's going to be an opportunity to revisit things and as well as to approve, the rest of the SERP that is not, the other strategies that are not going to be included under the phase 1 proposal.
Yeah, and thank you. And just a quick follow up to that. But so when is the deadline to meet phase 1? Because there are a lot of actions here. So, is that by May or is that like we're just trying to figure out how much do we have to meet these actions?
So the SERP, so CARB, CARB established that, and we have 5 years to implement these strategies. So the phase 1, all it means is that we can start this process sooner, right? So, I mean, the whole point is that, okay, well, if we have these strategies that have been fully developed and we got buy-in from all the jurisdictions that are involved with these strategies, why wait 6 months? We can start that now upon board approval. and then kind of start that implementation process. But, you know, under the SERP guidelines, we do have 5 years to implement the strategies for full implementation.
Great, thank you. We can go ahead with David Flores.
Everybody, good evening. Thank you very much for the work in getting us here, and everybody in the committee. I think it's been a tremendous lift to get all these strategies. So EHC is going to recommend approval of phase 1 strategies. We, of course, have made a comment before that we want to continue to work towards developing overall goals for the SERP, right? Both quantitative emissions reductions and qualitative emissions or qualitative goals for the community. We really appreciate including a lot of our comments for augmenting public participation process and really moving towards consideration of environmental justice in agency actions. We support the strengthening of the rules, and I know that's some work, but we can see that that's going to advance and get there. And we do want to, you know, work towards providing, or that APCD can provide proposals or recommendations as they advance that work to the SERP, for the SERP, and to the board. We also identified other gaps, just like Jack had identified the one for the truck route. And these we feel should be included in the SERP, not in the phase 1 necessarily, but in the SERP. One is to continue to work towards proposals for new rules to control emissions from indirect sources. And these, I think, you know, I want to thank the port, Sandag, that already started to do some of this, but there are other indirect sources like shopping centers or other facilities within portside communities, large housing developments, right? Warehouses, distribution centers that we still need to develop some goals towards. Another gap is going to, see, another gap we identified is that currently our district does not have a clear regulation for emissions from welding activities. And this is a topic that we would like to continue to put on the table, continue to have a discussion and work with everybody to get to a proposal or a rule. For trucks, we identified some gaps as well, that our SERP does not have or has not identified a phase-in strategy for all of portside community. This includes all heavy-duty trucks in portside, not just the ones servicing the port. But we would like to see if there can be a plan that targets achieving 100% zero emission by 2030. This is in advance of regulations, and we feel would make San Diego very competitive. I know that Greenlining has done a lot of research that points to Los Angeles, the Bay Area, really getting a lot of funding from different sources in the state where they've been a little bit more aggressive. We look forward to continuing to work with the port in developing a phase-in plan for zero emission vehicles for their tenants and operations. And I think that's another goal we would like to include in the SERP and dovetail or continue to work with the Maritime Clean Air Strategy to get there. finally, we also identified that if we're going to move in this direction, we don't really have a plan yet in the SERP for the charging infrastructure. And this is where I think, the committee members, SDG&E and SANDAG are going to be really key, because we need to stay ahead of the trucks. If we're asking companies to do this, we need the charging infrastructure to stay ahead of that. And we'd like to see if we can start with some preliminary goals by the end of 2021, and again, developing a phase plan. But with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody for working so hard on the phase 1 strategies.
Great, thank you, David. With next up is Ted, followed by Sarah. And if anyone else after Sarah has a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand or write your name in the chat box.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. Good evening. I definitely appreciate the overlap of the actions B2, E3, G7, and G10, all having to do with traffic and transportation. So the APCD, traffic emissions, the port district with truck routes, and I appreciate Jack's input on that. The shipyards with employee transportation, I think that needs to be worked out. And of course, the Navy with its traffic analysis and working out new strategies to get the cars and trucks off the roads in the first place. So I'm glad to see that we're all working together. And thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Ted. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, thanks for taking my comments. I did want to point out one of the things that was identified as a little bit of a gap in one of the workshops I went to was, I think it was Jacqueline who mentioned the lack of kind of small business participation on the steering committee. And I want to mention that now it sounds like some of those activities might be of interest. We should solicit potentially some viewpoints or perspective of small business. And then the other question I wanted to ask was, with respect to the strategies being proposed by APCD, what is the process for figuring out what that costs and where the funds come from to pay for that? And has there been an evaluation to know whether AB617 funding is paying for all these strategies, or if there will be a shortfall?
Hi, Sarah. So I don't know if there's a particular strategy that you are focusing on. A lot of these strategies that we're proposing, it's really gonna can be developed by our existing staff. Now, I mean, we are, like, for example, with the mobile source, potential expansion, I think the strategy is evaluating the feasibility of expanding our mobile source. So we're going to have to figure out what that entails and what is needed. And then if in the event that we have to add more staff, we would have to go back to our board. I guess everything that is there is already within our budget. Even the satellite office, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at that because, again, we want to be very judicious with regards to how we are spending our funding, our resources. And so we are looking at, originally we had proposed a satellite office in the port side, and now we are looking at, okay, what are other alternatives available for us to increase our presence in the port side community? Because that's the goal. It's not to have an office there. It's really to increase our presence there. So, I don't know, are you concerned about any of these strategies that perhaps I can discuss more specifically?
I mean, a bunch of them in there look like they have some element of cost to them. So, for example, I'm just throwing this one out there, the air filters, and I'm just curious, does that come from AB617 funds, or, and more to the point, maybe that hasn't been worked out, but maybe understanding the process of how does it get worked out, and what are the constraints about where the funding comes from?
Yeah, so that the air filtration, great question. Our board has already allocated funding for that initiative. We are gonna, we have to propose that to our board just to get authority for the air filtration program, because currently we only have the monitoring program PT, but the funding source has already been allocated for that. So there's nothing here that as written that would require us to require additional funding at this point.
Okay, great, thank you. Next comment from Roman. Go ahead, Roman.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. Yeah, just wanted to go back quickly to the timeline. I know you mentioned after this gets approved and we have 5 years to implement, but my concern is that it is 5 years, right? And just looking at even just these phase 1, there's a lot of evaluation that needs to happen. And waiting 5 years, right? Like I know there's a process and we need to follow that process, but we also have to work with some urgency here. So I'm curious as like, how can we set some goals? And I think this kind of builds off of what David had shared, right? Like, how are we phasing these goals in, right? How are we ensuring that like, which of these phase 1 projects are the priority that we need to accomplish so that we can then move on? Is that the evaluations, the evaluation components of it? Is it some of the other actions that are presented here? But I think there needs to start, there probably needs to be some type of we need to start laying out what that looks like, because I'm just concerned that 5 years to complete all of this like is a long time. So
absolutely, no, that's a great question. Now we have to have metrics, and we agree that again, I think that in the beginning of the meeting, I wanted to acknowledge our accomplishments, right? Because it's great to be here tonight, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge the journey that we have ahead of us, and we agree that we can further enhance, our targets and performance metrics. Background noise. So, but we have some standards that we have to meet. For example, we do need to provide annual updates to CARB with regards to where we are, and we'll continue to work with the steering committee by providing updates as far as where we are with the implementation of these strategies. So it's not like, okay, well, the board approved these strategies and you're not going to hear anything for 5 years. We're required to provide ongoing updates to basically, brief the steering committee as to where we are with that strategy. We have a brief discussion in Chapter 7 with regards to that, but certainly further enhance that.
And oh, sorry, Daniela. Just real quick.
Roman, maybe try speaking straight into your microphone really close.
Okay. It's the coordinator in yeah. It's not working. Better? All right. Just real quick. No, thank you for that. And I understand that there's going to be updates that are going to be provided both to CARB and to the community. My comment is definitely more in line of not just bringing back updates to the community, but how are we incorporating accountability into this process to make sure that, that as we phase this in, like which ones are the ones that we have to complete by, year 1, year 2, so that when those updates do come back, right, like we're able to point to some type of goal or some type of metric to determine if we met it or not. So, I'll stop there, but, definitely want to dive deeper into this as we move through this process. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so next comment from David Flores, and then Elisa will go after David, and then just raising that Silvia in the chat box, echoing Roman's question, just also wanted to raise that maybe ensuring that within the 5-year plan and implementation, we're addressing the challenges that have been raised by the pandemic through implementation. So thank you for that comment, Silvia. So go ahead, David, and then we'll take the comment from Elisa after David.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get back to Sarah's question. I think this is where AB617 can be either that seed or fill a match for other much larger grant and or state funding, right? And so I think this is where having a little bit more definition will really benefit Portside and San Diego, in that we have a tremendous I think opportunity to leverage if we can just get a little bit more specific in each of the strategies. I think the work that we've been able to advance with, for example, the cargo handling equipment, that's very defined and detailed. We know exactly how many pieces of equipment, that we need to do for the rest of Portside, and which is important for agencies and cities to also come in and connect on how we can also leverage some of this funding and strategies that are supported by everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, David. Okay, so next comment from Elisa, and then after Elisa, I see Jack's hand up, so we'll take Jack's comment after Elisa.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to let the committee know that SANDAG is working with the port, the transit agencies, Caltrans and SCG&E and other partners on a grant application for the California Energy Commission that is going to develop a regional SEV blueprint for trucks and buses, medium-duty trucks and heavy-duty vehicles, to identify all the actions that are going to be necessary to implement emission trucks and buses and infrastructure. So that's something that is, the application is in process. We had requested a letter of support from the steering committee that I believe we're going to get after this process gets established. So we are already trying to lay the groundwork to start accomplishing some of the strategies that David mentioned just a few minutes ago.
Great, thank you. Beautiful seeing all of you come together and applying for more money to the Portside communities. Thank you. Okay, Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, Daniela. And I want to add to David's comments about what the district has pulled together here tonight compared to where we were just literally 3 months ago. I think we've made a tremendous amount of progress and really started to focus, which is extremely encouraging. So I had a question, again, probably for Miney, I guess, and then a comment depending on her answer, but so I understand the action F1, buffer zones, increased setbacks in the Portside community. So that is a phase 2 item, not a phase 1 item, what we're discussing right now, or what?
Yes, it is, Jack. And frankly, that's a really good point, okay. Because what I was going to suggest is, for, so that we get through everything we need to get through, to really focus on, what we're proposing under phase 1 to close the loop on that, because we're still going to be talking about the entire SERP. That's what we would like to do. Because, since the draft SERP is going to be submitted to our board as an update, not for them to act on, we do want the steering committee to review and vote on this draft. So we definitely wanted to go over all the strategies. And so if we can perhaps focus on the phase 1 approach now, that would be great, so that we can finish on time.
So,
okay, thanks.
So I do want to open it up for comments from members of the public. If anyone has a comment, they want to raise their hand on the phase 1 strategies. I'm not seeing any, and if you're unable to find the raise your hand, you can write your name in the chat box and Chewy and I will see it, but not seeing any comments. I do want to see if anyone has a motion from the steering committee to approve the phase 1 strategies.
Also move. This is Ted.
Thank you. So I have a motion from Ted to approve phase 1 strategies. Can I have someone second?
I'll second. This is Sylvia.
Great. And so we are going to, after this vote, go into the phase 2 strategies and the rest of the SERP. So questions about that will be addressed there. So I'm gonna do a roll call vote then. We have a second from Sylvia and a motion from Ted to approve the phase 1 strategies as are. On the screen, you'll see the list of everybody. I'm gonna call the primary members and I will only call the alternate's name if the primary member isn't here. And when I call on your name, if you could just have if everybody could just from the steering committee can unmute so we can just be ready to go fast. I am gonna do a roll call vote per our charter. So at the top, Ashley, do you vote in favor of the motion to approve the phase 1 strategies?
Yes, in favor.
Great. Jack?
Yes.
Great. Sarah?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Elisa?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Stephanie, you didn't join late, right? Okay, Stephanie's not here. Jose Marquez Chavez?
Yes.
AC does not vote, but we will acknowledge him. Liana Rios?
Yes.
Great. Oops, and I'm gonna move the slide. Sorry. Okay. After Liana, we have Sandy Naranjo.
Yes.
Great. Ted Godchak.
Yes, in favor.
Great. Hillary Medina is not present.
Alicia Sanchez, sí.
Okay. Alicia Sanchez, sí. Margarita Moreno.
Margarita Moreno a favor también. Lo escribí, perdón.
Ay, no estás
En las dos a favor.
No hay, aquí no hay de perdones. Irma is not with us, nor is Olympia, I believe. Okay, Vanessa, I believe I saw you join late. Do you vote in favor?
In favor.
Okay, great. Salvador.
In favor.
Great. Montserrat.
A favor.
Perfecto. Silvia.
Yes, approve.
Great. Ashley.
Yes, approve.
Great. And Josephine.
Yes.
Perfect. We have a unanimous vote. Yay! Round of applause, everybody.
Favor,
Use your reactions. Bravo. Okay, so now we're going to keep on going, and Mayani's going to walk us through briefly through the next part of the SERP, where we'll, and then after this, we'll do again, stop at the conversation, stop for discussion, and then take a vote. And I do want to remind folks that if there are issues that you feel as a steering committee member, if you have minor changes that you think that would be easy to be incorporated this week, I think, raise those, and if they're non-controversial. But if there's items we feel that we want to have further discussion on, this is just a draft. And so we are making a note of those, and we will make sure that those continue to be discussed through the 6-month period that we have until May when everything becomes final. So with that, Mayani, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your support. So now we're going to be talking about the draft SERP. So this is actually the cover that we're proposing for our draft SERP. That again is just a draft, but that's there. And so can we go back one slide, please? So I just wanted to highlight that the SERP includes all these different sections. And each section obviously focuses on a different aspect of the portside community. All these documents are available on our website for your review. And again, I just wanted to highlight that, yes, this is just a draft, but the reason we are presenting it tonight and we are voting on it is because it's going to be submitted to our board as an update. Once we vote on this draft tonight, and we can make some adjustments, I know that some of you might have some comments, but I just wanted to highlight that after we vote on the version of the SERP that we decide, we are not going to be able to make subsequent changes to the draft document that is going to go to our board. Of course, we're going to continue to accept comments. We're going to continue to enhance the document. It needs enhancement. But I just wanted to highlight that we still have 6 months for that purpose. But once we vote on this document tonight, we're not going to be able to make substantial changes on the version that is going to be presented to our board as an update. So I just wanted to make sure that we make that very clear. All right, so we're ready to go. So we're going to go over all the strategies that we have. Again, it's an amazing accomplishment that we made here. We have 42 strategies that we developed to promote air quality in the portside community. So that is amazing. So I'm gonna go over these really quickly because we just discussed those under the phase 1. So these are all phase 1 strategies. I just talked about those. So these as well, they're all under the phase 1 strategies. I think that was too quick. So can we go back to C? I just want to make sure that, okay, yeah, so those strategies, those are related to rule development. And again, you know, they're all under the phase 1 strategy, the phase 1 bucket. And then D, we can go back to D. These are all under the phase 1 strategies. So I do want to, you know, for D6, we're just proposing to reword here a little bit before it said promote enforcement of existing air quality rules and regulations pertaining to mobile source. I'm proposing to say, you know, what you see on your screen, evaluate the feasibility of expanding enforcement of truck idling regulation. Just for clarity, if there are any concerns with this revised language, we can talk about it. Okay, so then, so like moving to strategies, E, these are the strategies that are related to trucks. They were developed by the truck subcommittee. And so you see all these strategies on your slide. I think I'm just gonna stop and just let you look at those and see if there are any questions. You've had the documents that have all these strategies. So, you know, maybe we can go slide by slide and see if there are any questions or any comments related to some of these strategies.
And just for clarification, Roman had a question about what will go to the board in so phase 1 will go to the board, and the draft SERP, the rest of that is considered an update. But anything that I think minor changes for either phase 1 or phase 2 can happen today. But you know, bigger changes that need further discussion, we want to bike rack those for this, you know, that time before May for further discussion.
So I thought I had a question on E5. I can't really see my entire screen. Do you see that in red? I can see on my phone, but not on my screen. So yeah. I think what I'm proposing, Danielle, can you read the text that is in red?
Yes. So the question there is, can this strategy be combined with E2, which is fair outcome for small truck owners?
So yeah, so I was just proposing, and again, we can change that later. We don't have to change it now. But, you know, I was proposing to combine E2 and E5, but again, we can leave as is because, again, this is just a draft, but that was the question there that I have. So I don't know if anyone has any concerns about that. Okay, so could we move to the next slide? We're gonna go, so these are, strategies related to land use. They are developed by, you know, the land use subcommittee. So these strategies, again, we want to open for questions, but one question that I have is that, you know, with the land use subcommittee, they did an excellent job, you know, separating the strategies that they propose under phase 1 and under phase 2, because you know, unfortunately, these strategies are not ready at this point to be implemented because we still needed to work with jurisdictions. I wonder if I could remove the phase 1 reference on that are now on the tables, because I just wanted to avoid confusion, right? Because we're basically saying phase 1 strategies are the strategies that we're proposing to the board in November and already. So I think the wording of those tables can create some confusion. So I don't know, David, you know, since you're you've been leading the land use subcommittee, I think you know what I'm talking about here, and I don't know if you have any concerns about that. I'm just trying to avoid confusion.
Yeah, so I think two comments. One was, I think there was going back to the trucks, I think there was an concern that what the subcommittee didn't want to happen was for truck owners and then the individuals to be mixed up, and that's why it was separate. And then for the land use strategies, unfortunately, yeah, I don't think we were able to get input in time for a lot of these. Again, I think, you know, I wish we would have, because we could have identified some some other kind of grant funding for transportation or land use, but I don't think we have a choice. I think they're all going to fall. You know, I can't say that, Miney, without understanding where the city of San Diego and the city of Washington, if in their priorities for streets or infrastructure or transportation, there could be one or two, several strategies that might be ready to go.
Yeah, so I think that, you know, so I guess what we are calling what we're calling phase one strategies are the strategies that we're going to be presenting to the board, right? The strategies that we just voted on. So my point is that if we submit this draft SERP that has references to phase one, other phase one strategies, that can lead to some confusion. So, you know, and I think that the land use tables, the land use, all the land use tables, they have a reference to phase one strategies. So I think that can cause some confusion. But you know,
I would only say as so long as if there are land use strategies that the final SERP can be elevated to a phase one, that happens over the next 6 months. Is that am I making sense?
I'm not sure, but you're breaking it up a little bit. But so can you say that again, David? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
I was saying if we recategorize everything right now.
Hold on, I'm gonna mute you. Try talking as close as you can to your microphone and unmuting again.
Okay, is this better? No.
No, you know, I'm sorry, it's my computer.
I was gonna say, I'll type my.
You know, David, I think that this is such a minor thing. I don't want to hold that.
Chewy, I'm going to make you the host, and let's see if that helps to solve the audio problem. Do you want to try your comment again? I think that might help.
Okay. I was going to say if the proposals for land use are recategorized all in phase two right now for this draft that's going to the board, there should be an opportunity over the next 6 months to elevate some of those to phase one.
But what do you mean by that? I mean, what does that look like for you? Because, you know, I mean, we're supposed to go to our board in May. So you're saying, you know, like a step in between. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, raise your hand in the box. And I know that Jack, your comment is there. Can you hear me? No problems. Stuart, can you unmute and can you tell me if you can hear me?
You're breaking up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to make you the host again. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
You sound fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think that my computer was causing the problem. So, okay. David, if you want to go again, and then we have Jack, Paula, and Ted and Larry. And I do want to apologize. We are getting a little bit behind on schedule. So I just want to flag that we may have to hold off on the charter, or we may have to delay some of the other items, but hopefully not. So hopefully we can get through this because we do have a few more slides. So David, if you want to go ahead, and then I think Jack and Ted, I saw your hands up. And if you could keep your hand up if you raised it, and then Chewy, if you could just make sure you're writing those in the box as they come up.
Thank you. I was saying that I understand where there might be confusion, but I want to say that if we do not give the cities, for example, an opportunity to identify priorities where they might have them for a street or a bike route or an improvement that will help, there should also be then an opportunity to elevate those into what would have been a phase one if the cities are ready and they can commit.
So I think that we are proposing is that, we highlight perhaps what has been identified as phase one as high priority initiatives. And then if the cities are ready to implement those, then, well, technically they could move forward with those because those strategies outside our board jurisdiction. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, David, you're just saying maybe instead of calling those phase one to avoid the my only concern is the terminology, right? That we're saying, okay, phase one is this. Then if we have all these tables within the draft SERP identifying things as phase one, then that could lead to confusion. But perhaps we can just say, instead of calling phase one, just calling high priority, or or just using a different terminology just to avoid that confusion. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, I think that'll work. And if that's, again, the conversation and the result of what happens in working with San Diego and National City, then I think that can work. I just hate to not, I just, like Roman said, 5 years is not a lot of time. And if we can identify how to leverage and really point to prioritization in port side for land use and transportation, then I think we're missing a big boat. So.
Exactly. No, I understand. And my only thing was the wording, because again, we cannot say, I mean, we're spending all this time identifying phase one. We just vote on what phase one is and what we're going to propose to the board. So submitting even though it's a draft document, but that could lead to confusion, but perhaps we can reword that to say high priority. And, I think that the city or other jurisdictions, nothing stopped them from initiating the implementation of these strategies because, I mean, a lot of those, they wouldn't need the APCD board approval. So, I mean, I know Paula is on, I think she raised her hand, right? I don't know if she has, I just want to make sure that she's in agreement with what I just said, but that's how I see it. So would you be okay though, David, to basically, instead of saying phase one, just say high priority, just to avoid confusion?
Yes, but I do want to go back to the point that, some of these are indirect sources, right, that could be either made stronger by cities, by ordinances. And so that's where I think, you know, we need to make sure that we don't let up. We can't let up. I think our cities need to be connected to air. And if we need to push harder on them to do that, then what better tool than an emissions reduction plan for the community? So that's where I don't want us to let go of that, because just like the port has been very connected and is doing more work, so is Sandag, right? I think the cities need to also connect to their long-range plans and their strategies for everything from climate change, right, or their climate plans, to how they're going to deal with electric infrastructure in their communities. So I just don't want to let go of that, but that's fine, Miney. I think that'll work.
Okay, thanks, David. And so, yeah, so I guess we're going through the folks that raised their hands, right, Daniela?
So yeah, and to Roman's question, just to clarify before that, Roman, I think with the subcommittee on land use had a different understanding of phase one rather than what we're going with now. I think so. So I think now for semantics, the next step is that to clarify and to not confuse the governing board, they're going to, within the land use strategies, just reprioritize everything that was phase one as high priority, because those are also not inside the jurisdiction of the air district necessarily, which is the additional challenge. So I'm going to take Jack's comment. If other folks have comments, just encourage you to raise your hand or write your chat and then name your name in the chat box, just so we can move a little bit quicker. Okay. Go ahead, Jack.
Hi, Daniela. I just sent you a note. I'll wait on my comments till later. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. I didn't see that. Okay. So Miney still has more slides to go through. So Miney, I'm going to actually suggest we go through them.
Okay. I do want to do that, but can I just ask on slides, on the E slides, the previous slides, there was a question that I just want to make sure that we close the loop. So it's if E5 can be combined with E2. I'm not proposing to delete anything.
The preference in the chat box was to keep those separate.
Separate. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So let's move on to F. We're going, yeah. So we talked about this one. Okay. Move forward. Okay, so so these are more additional strategy. So strategy F10, it's, you know, the table is kind of blank. You know how we have different tables for these strategies? You know, I think that, you know, this strategy, that's all it says on the table for F10. So I was wondering if we could, you know, combine that, or I mean, we can leave the table as it is blank. I was just avoiding to submit a document that has kind of missing information. And so, you know, I think this strategy kind of aligns with the health risk strategy potentially, but we can leave as it is. It's just a draft. I was just avoiding having kind of incomplete tables. Same thing with, so G, now we're talking about waterfront strategies. So Larry, I don't know if you have any thoughts on G1. Again, this is another table that is kind of blank and always says adequate funding for port to implement SERP measures for which it is the lead agency. And so, I mean, we already have our incentive strategies. It seems like, I don't know that we need a table just to say that, but, you know, again, we can leave it, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry about that. Yeah, I guess looking at it again, Mayani, I think you're probably right. Unless anyone else from the subcommittee that worked on this thinks differently, if you feel like it's not necessary, I'm not necessarily married to at least that first part. I do think that it's good for us, for the port, in terms of that third line, to identify potential new sources of funding, including new fees. That's really important to keep in there. But in terms of that first part, I'm not necessarily sure. But again, I'd like to open it up to other port subcommittee members to see if they think, if they have a different opinion.
Yeah, we can leave as it is. This is like minor things, you know, I mean, to the extent that we can, I wanted to kind of have these tables completely, complete. But again, the whole idea is that it's a draft document. These strategies have to be further development. So we can just leave as it is. That's not a problem at all. Let's see, there's some comments coming in.
So there's a question about whether that means, to clarify, whether that means exploring other grant sources and potential fees also, right? And so Larry just confirmed that he thinks that's right.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay, well, we're just gonna leave as it is. And so, okay, so then the next one is advocacy measures, and that only has one strategy under this category.
Okay, so with that, we're at the point where we can have, we've had some discussion. I don't know if there's any overall comments or points that people wanted to raise here. I know, Jack, you wanted to hold off. I don't know if you wanted to go ahead now. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure whether it's best in the advocacy section or in section F, but chapter 3, our technical section talks about, and so I'm gonna leave my camera off here so I don't overload the Wi-Fi here and go through this problem. But chapter 3 talks about the fact that diesel particulate matter is the carcinogen of most concern in the county and portside community. That's one of the statements right out of the chapter. And then there's several tables, including figures 3.5, that show how most of the serious emissions occur along the freeways. Figure 3.9 shows on-road diesel particulate matter emissions and how they track right along the freeways in the portside community. So I think it's essential that this committee consider encouraging advocating for a limitation on development adjacent to the freeway at some respected distance. Now, maybe that's maybe that's kind of included in that F2 or 3. I'm not sure which one it was because I don't have it in front of me. I'm not sure if it's best in advocacy. So yeah, action F2, reduce exposures for sensitive receptors within 500 feet of port, freeways, and industries. That sounds like that's what I just suggested could be included within that strategy. Or do we need a separate discussion?
Okay, that's a good point. I see Joy has a comment. Do you want to go ahead, Joy?
Yeah, I wanted to speak real briefly to that. I just want to make everyone aware, at least in the case of Barrio Logan, there is an update to the community land use plan that's going through a process in the city. And, that could happen, before next May, I think, or sometime in, the fairly near future. And in at least the draft version includes concepts like some limitations on both residential and industrial land uses in the blocks that are closest to the industrial waterfront. So there is a buffer concept in there, and I think that's the kind of thing that could be supported by the steering committee. So I wanted to mention that.
So I want to note, Jack, your offer to maybe put this into the bucket of that we will further discuss in the next coming meetings. And it sounds like, it sounds like a good conversation at one of our next steering committee meetings or at one of the subcommittee meetings about the existing efforts at the city, both San Diego, National City, and maybe how specifically that can get laid out. I know here in the city of LA, we have a policy that any housing or construction within 1,000 feet of the freeway needs to have MERV 13 filtration to protect those folks. So there are different types of policies that could, a range of policies that can be considered. So just offering that.
I appreciate that. That's a great idea. I think it's all going to be very timely for the very reason that Joy just mentioned, and that is that the city is about to approve a new community plan that calls for construction of a sizable amount of housing immediately adjacent to I-5. And so here, that plan would seem to be working in one direction while we're working in another, trying to limit exposure, limit diesel particulate matter impact on the community. So I just think that's going to come up very quickly here. So as long as we can have this as a discussion item going forward, I'm fine with that because it seems to fit underneath action F2 here.
Would that be okay with others? Okay, I'm not hearing any opposition.
This is David. I have my hand raised.
I was just going to call you, David. Okay, go ahead.
No, I think that's correct, Jack, and I think we've started to lay out some of those strategies. Augmenting maybe landscape requirements around those areas, particularly for new constructions and development, doing other things like indoor filtration, but also Caltrans is reviewing what happens on the edges of the freeways, and if there could be more done. So yeah, those are all things that we can continue to discuss, as part of F2. I also have one question. So the comments that were shared or that were submitted to the district by EHC, those would be included in the draft, sir?
So, no, I'm not muted. Yeah, so I think that, I sent the steering committee the latest version of the SERP. So that is the document that it's under discussion right now. And so we did incorporate a lot of the comments. I think that there are some comments that, we feel that, it's going to need more discussion, and, others is more like with regards to the targets, for example, we agreed that we needed to, further enhance the target section of the SERP. So, but that's not, it's not there yet, in terms of, we're just acknowledging that we needed to further enhance that section. But, I did send the latest draft of the SERP, for review, and we posted that on our website prior to this meeting so that, everyone can see, including members of the public, the version of the SERP that it's under discussion right now.
Okay, great. So
is that something in particular that because you should all have the latest version, it's available on the website, but if there's something in particular that you're wondering about, we can talk about it.
Was there anything else, David, that didn't get included, or specifically?
Well, I wanted to bring up the kind of overall goals for trucks. I know that needs more detail, and I know that it would probably be best to continue the conversation in the truck subcommittee, right? But for something like that says, to introduce a phase-in plan for Portside for zero emission. So those, then what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that those should continue to be developed from this point forward, and I guess to be introduced integrated before the final SERP.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to enhance, a lot of, not just, the different sections of the SERP, but, certainly a lot of the strategies need to be further developed. And I think that as we engage with other jurisdictions, they might want to revisit the wording, with regards to some of those. In fact, I do want to mention, I almost forgot, Ray from National City submit some comments today, so we needed to talk about that as well. tonight, if you wanted these comments to be incorporated into the version that is going to be presented to the board, we needed to make sure that the steering committee hears about these comments and, so that it's incorporated. Because again, after tonight, as I mentioned previously, we're not going to be able to make additional changes to the draft SERP version that is going to go to our board. We will obviously continue to further develop the SERP, between now and next May. But I just want to make sure that, it's very clear that whatever we decide on tonight, that's going to be the version that is going to go to our board. Again, it's going to be presented as an update, as a draft, but that's the document that we're going to be working with. So I don't know, if we wanted to talk about those comments from National City right now, or if you're okay with the current version as written, and then we can further develop these strategies, at a future time.
Hi, this is Raymond, City of National City. Yeah, we'd like to address them. I think they're pretty minor comments. A few comments from various staff, and we apologize for them not getting to you before the final draft came out. But I think we could hit a few bullets really quickly just to go over those with the committee.
Okay, would you like to go ahead, because we just for time, and then we'll take a comment from Ashley.
Okay, so I'll reference the action F1 under phase 2. There are a couple of bullets that address amortization, and our concern with that is that amortization may not actually be relevant to that particular action. We see it as a tool or mechanism that's used to terminate non-conforming uses. We actually adopted the amortization ordinance back in 2006, so there's really nothing more to do in terms of establishing amortization. It's a tool that exists, and the council does use it from time to time through the budgeting process as a means to reduce the number of non-conforming uses. It's just one of many tools. It's a pretty expensive tool to use. Everything from rezoning, the West Side Specific Plan, for example, rezoned the entire West Side. That's probably been the most effective tool in ensuring that non-conforming uses do not expand and proliferate in that area. So we just wanted to make that point, and amortization itself really is not a goal. It's more of a tool or a mechanism for achieving a goal. If the goal was to eliminate all non-conforming uses, we could understand that, but it doesn't quite make sense to make it a goal in itself.
And the next point?
Sure. We're going to action F3, urban greening, under goals, timeline, phase 2. Urban mini parks. The issue we have there is, well, we don't have a problem with the concept. It's just that the funding and the assignment of resources would be an issue for the city. And so we'd like to reword that so that that it's based on as funding becomes available, or as funding allows, rather than tying the city down to actually going through the feasibility study and actually producing mini parks, which currently we do have several different initiatives that are moving in that direction, but this is like a new initiative, and we're really strapped in terms of resources, staffing and funding wise. So that was our second comment. I think there's just a couple others here really quickly. Under action F4, public school exposure reduction, under implementing agencies, You've listed several agencies, including the city, and again, we're really not geared up in terms of resources to implement what's in the responsibilities column, other than assisting in identifying and facilitating the contacts with the school districts and the schools themselves. But those other items there are just things that we don't even have in terms of expertise or resources at this time. And I think we have one final comment under, well, actually, this is in reference to the Harbor Drive multimodal corridor study. Our engineering department just had a couple of technical issues with under F7, improved transportation efficiencies. I think they pointed out some technical issues with items under phase 2, number 10 and number 12. They noted some operational issues with some of the wording there. For example, the three through lanes at Naval Base Gate 9. They indicate they were probably getting a little too technical at this point, but the point was they wanted more time basically to review and look at the and also ensure that funding was addressed, or at least the caveat behind all of the implementation requirements or goals for these. And I think that
Okay, great. So I'm just to summarize that quickly, and then to see if anybody has any objections to this. Hearing that the first comment that National City would like to make is getting rid of the reference to amortization in strategy F1, given that they're already doing that and there's already an ordinance in place. An F3 on urban greening towards mini parks, just clarifying that, rewording that to clarify that the city will move in that direction as funding allows, and rather than conducting a feasibility study at this point, which would seem like an additional program. Then clarifying on F4 the city's responsibility and role in given their authority. And then with F7 on Harbor Drive multimodal, some technical things that maybe because they're phase 2, I might suggest putting into the second bucket of let's figure that out after the board meeting. So does anybody have any comments that they would like to make? I see David saying that he would like to ask if these can be reviewed by the subcommittee. So that you are in every right to ask that. So would there be any objection from that from National City if we put all of these into the bucket of we figure out after the board meeting? And if not, is there something that would be particularly of these strategies to National City just urgent to get clarified before?
I think we just wanted to make them clear up front, any issues. That would be fine, yeah. I think phase 2, or pretty much phase 2 type actions.
Great. Okay, so we will make note of those comments and that make a note that maybe the SERP can just put a star in these when it goes to saying that these will be further discussed in the next 6 months. Rather than having to make a discussion here, because some of them seem pretty significant or technical and may be helpful to have more time. Great, thank you for that, Raymond, and thank you, National City. Ashley, go ahead with your comment. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, thank you, Daniela. I just wanted to ask a question of APCD, since it sounds to me like the phase 2 actions are going in front of the board for presentation in November. Hopefully I have that right. Will there be either discussion or information presented to the board that those still require input and coordination with the municipalities to sort of better understand how they can move forward, especially because I think it's important to really demonstrate that there is a separate decision-making body outside of the APCD board that has the biggest impact on whether or not those actions move forward. And so I think it's, I just wanted to get clarification if they were going to see just what we saw, that list of actions, or is there going to be a more comprehensive discussion around why those are phase 2 and still what needs to be done as far as coordinating with the two municipalities rather that have a lot of impact over those.
Great question, Ashley. So so we're going to be presenting the phase 1 strategy to our board and ask for approval. Everything else is going to be presented as an update, and as being the strategies that have been proposed by the steering committee, but further development is needed to enhance the SERP, enhance the strategies, and work with the jurisdictions to ensure that that they are there's buy-in there with regards to the implementation of these strategies. So the board is going to see the draft document that we share with the steering committee. And that's why we're having this discussion today. That draft is going to go to the board as an update. But again, it is a draft, and we will communicate that further development is needed. The SERP is not done, and further enhancement is needed, and further approval from these other jurisdictions is needed. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And that's similar for phase 1 actions as well. That's what I heard too, right? It's all going forward as sort of an informational item to the board. Is that they're voting on phase 1?
Phase one are the strategies they were ready to implement.
Okay.
So everything on phase 1, we're ready to go, we're ready to implement. And then within the phase 1 strategies, there are some that we need board approval, and others that we can, legally we can move forward with those, but we're gonna provide an update to our board. But the phase 1, the implementation start. Phase 2 is what needs further development and further discussion with the jurisdictions that are involved with the implementation of these strategies.
And to your point, to the earlier conversation, to clarify, the land use subcommittee recommendations had referred to some things as phase 1, but we're going to reclassify those to high priority instead of phase 1.
Yes.
And that'll to clarify the jurisdictional issues and to make sure that those are not going to be implemented, because the district doesn't have that authority to implement some of those, many of those.
Yeah,
okay.
to avoid confusion, we'll remain priority. Yes.
Okay, great. So are there any other comments from the steering committee? If so, raise your hand or write your name in the chat. And if there's any comments from anyone in the public, I'll just ask the same. If you can raise your hand or the chat. Write your name. Okay, I don't see any, so I am going to bring us to the point where we can vote, ask for a motion for a vote. And I think the recommendation from the Air District is to vote to approve what is in the rest of the SERP as an update to the board, just to letting them know where the status update on where the SERP is being developed, and that everything else that is not phase 1 is going to be discussed at coming meetings between now and May before the SERP is put forward for final approval.
And Daniela, just to clarify, the SERP document that we're talking about, that we're voting on, is the last version that we sent it to the committee before this meeting. And the only change that we're gonna make to this document, based on the discussion that we had tonight, is to rename the strategies that are labeled as phase 1 to high priority under the land use strategy. That's the only change that I heard today. Everything else is going to remain the same.
That's right. And then items I have on my list to continue specifically of priority to discuss at future meetings will be this issue of housing near freeways, enhancing targets for like the overall SERP, especially goals for trucks. Also looking at having the land use subcommittee looking at the national city recommendations. And those are not all of the things, but those are some of the key ones that have come up in the conversation tonight. Okay, can we get a motion?
Donald Brico, motion to accept as
Great.
presented.
Can we get a second? Oh, and Ted included a comment about D4. I think that might be captured in the notes, and if not, we'll go back to the recording unless you want to write it again in the box, Ted. Or share, go unmute and share it one more time.
No, it was just to delete the first 3 words to, how was it put on D4? Let's see, I'll go back in the.
It was exploring the feasibility of evaluating
Yeah,
rules?
yeah.
Or
Oh, it's not D4, it's D6. So evaluate the feasibility. I just said we should write it as expand enforcement of.
yeah, so here's, why we needed to do a study on this, because, we only have so many inspectors. So if we're going to do more idling inspections, we would have to decrease other inspections, or we needed to look into increase the number of inspectors. So that's why we needed to explore the different options that are available. I mean, we're already doing bi-weekly idling inspections in the portside community. In order to do more than that, we would have, something else would have to give. And so we needed to, in order to not compromise the quality of other programs, we needed to evaluate the feasibility of doing that. It's very possible that the outcome of this discussion is that we need more inspectors. And if that's the case, we need to revisit our budget and do other things to make that happen.
Well, it certainly goes along with increasing the presence of the APCD in the neighborhoods that was mentioned in the phase 1.
Yeah, increase APCD presence in the portside community. We want our inspectors to be, parking there, or just, stationed there. We're looking into a satellite office so that they're there more frequently, as opposed to be at our headquarters, for example. So, we're just looking at different options that, that are available to have our inspectors, there, as opposed to in other locations throughout the county. Because if they're there more often, we can, go ahead, Daniela.
Oh, okay, go ahead, finish up. No.
No, I was, that's it. I'm done.
So we have a motion to accept the recommendations as an update to the board, noting the changes in items for conversation. If folks can stop writing comments in the chat at this point and just unmute, that's more helpful at this point. It's 7:54, so we have a lot of items on the agenda. So I think if we could, if you want to go ahead with your comment and share it, Roman, and if you want to modify the motion or.
No, I'm not trying to modify the motion. I just, and sorry for that. I have my kids in here with me, so I had to keep them quiet. Yeah, I would just recommend that after this motion that we get something in writing that really spells out what exactly is moving forward, just spells out the upcoming process, because this has been a really confusing conversation without having a document to actually look at that really lays out what's phase 1, what's phase 2, what we can make changes to, what we can't make changes to anymore. And so as a recommendation, as we move forward, to have a document outlining this will be really helpful.
Great, and I can try to summarize, and thank you for calling.
And Daniela, and it's not enough. Just I appreciate you wanting to summarize. I appreciate that, but I think it'd be helpful just to have a document to reference rather than continuing just to hear summaries. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that can happen. I think it's important to clarify for the vote. So just to make sure, and this will get written down, that for the process of what you're voting on this evening and for what we're moving forward with, is that for phase 1, what you voted on, those changes have to go to the board by November. And so because the staff report has to be submitted by October 19th, anything in phase 1, besides minor changes that were discussed today, for the purpose of going to the board in November, can't be changed. Everything going forward in phase 2 is just going to the board for an update and is open for being changed, and will just be going, it's not going to be voted on by the APCD, it will just be a status update. So I think it is important to provide a written clarification of all of this, and we'll work with the district on getting that. But I do think that it is important to clarify those things here for the purpose of the vote, so we're all clear on voting those. So I appreciate everyone's patience. Okay, let's go ahead, David. David, can you unmute?
Sorry about that. Just having a sticky button here. Keep getting muted. But I was going to second the motion to go ahead and accept the phase 1 strategies to present to the board. But I did also want to say that I think it would be important to confirm that any other comments that have come in are either directed to the appropriate subcommittee to continue development. And then, as Roman stated, just clarity on what happens next in the process.
Yeah. So just to clarify, David, you said phase 1. We already voted on that. So I think what we're voting now is whether or not, this draft version of the SERP can be submitted to the board as an update.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so we have a motion from Sal to approve. We have David seconding, and to be clear, it is just for the draft SERP to be submitted to the board as an update on this process with a notification that things are still being developed by the steering committee. So with that, we're going to do a quick roll call. So I am going to ask everybody in the steering committee to unmute and in order of your name on the list. So Ashley?
Yes.
Great. Jack?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Elisa?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Stephanie? Is not here. Sorry. Jose Marquez Chavez?
Yes.
Ken is actually, okay. AC Dumal? You don't vote? Okay. And now I'm just going quickly crazy here. Liana Rios?
Yes.
Filomena Marino, you're not here. Sandy Naranjo?
Yes.
Ted Gottschalk?
Yes.
Hillary Medina, I don't believe is here. Alicia Sanchez?
Yes.
Margarita Moreno?
Yes.
Irma Ortiz is not here, I believe. Giapsi is no longer here. Olympia is not here. Vanessa is here. Vanessa is no longer with us. Salvador?
Yes.
Montserrat?
Sí.
Silvia?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Josephine?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have approved that. So I am going to, we are at 8 o'clock, which I'm so sorry. We've had technical difficulties and you've been so patient. And I know that people have childcare issues. I am going to rework the agenda a little bit with everyone's permission to and ask if we can stay at least until 8:10. Our colleagues from CARB have been on the line to provide an update on the Navy ship fire investigation. And so I'm going to ask that they do that. And then if to approve the charter votes, there is the stipend issue. I'm going to ask if we treat that, take that item up first, because this air district wanted to make sure that we had the air district's, the steering committee's approval on that in order for them to actually sign the contract so that we can start paying those as soon as possible. So if there's no opposition to that, I think I'm going to, okay, great. There's hearing no opposition. At this point, Stephen from CARB, do you want to go ahead with the update?
Sure, I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Let me begin with a little recap if you guys don't remember what I talked about last month. So in late July, CARB received a letter from EHC requesting that CARB evaluate San Diego APCD's air monitoring response protocols results from the fire aboard the Bonhomme Richard Navy fire. In turn, CARB agreed and formed a working group with San Diego APCD, Cal EPA, US EPA, and other responding agencies, which have been meeting weekly to review and evaluate each agency's actions during the incident and to collect findings to identify areas of improvements for future emergency air quality responses. So CARB now plans to hold a public meeting scheduled sometime in November to discuss our current findings and collect further input and feedback on areas of concerns for inclusion in our review. It's important to note that the meeting won't focus on answers to any listed finding, nor provide answers surrounding the fire incident, but rather to discuss if all the categories, concerns, and findings are adequately identified for inclusion in the evaluation. We want to make sure all concerns from the community have been heard and collected so they can be included in the evaluation. The notice for the November meeting will be emailed out to all current CSC members and to participants who attended the July CSC meeting. We also ask that the CSC and members of the community to please spread the word about the meeting to other interested parties. The meeting will likely be hosted on Zoom. Translations for documents and interpretation services for Spanish will be provided. The meeting information and initial findings evaluation category document will be posted and available for review on CARB's website at least 1 week in advance of the meeting. Comments for the findings and evaluation category document will also be accepted prior to the meeting using the email provided in the meeting information during the meeting and also a week after the meeting. A timeline of events document for the fire incident detailing each responding agency's actions will also be provided to help the community understand how the incident was handled. The input provided by the community during this meeting and review period will greatly benefit the working group by hearing what specific concerns the working group should focus on and consider during the evaluation. Once complete, the report will identify findings and describe recommendations for improving preparedness, coordination, operations, and communications during future unanticipated air quality emergencies, and include an assessment of health impacts from the fire and a review of all collected data.
Still going on.
The final report, which we hope to have completed by the end of the year, will be published on CARB's website in English and Spanish, and it will be shared for the community. That's all I have. So if there are any questions or comments, I'll be happy to accept them.
Are there any questions for Stephen? Great. If not, well,
Jack has his hand raised.
Thank you, Chewy. Okay, go ahead, Jack.
Thanks, Chewy. Thanks, Daniela. So just to make sure I understand, you all, CARB, are not going to discuss any of your findings at this meeting. This will be an opportunity for the community and other attendees to provide you with their perspective on what you should be looking at or what additional things they want you to consider. And there won't be any final findings until you publish your report later in the year. Is that correct?
Our findings will be emailed or sent out to you guys in the document, but there won't be any recommendations for those findings. And then the community will have an opportunity to provide feedback or provide their own concerns or findings they want added to this evaluation that we're doing.
Okay, could I just ask that I don't even think I was at that July meeting, if you would not just send it out to the people who are in attendance on the steering committee, but all the steering committee when you do send those out?
Yes, all the CSC members on the roster will get a notification.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it will also go to the public who attended that meeting to be clear. So perfect. Great. Any other questions? And thank you for clarifying that, Stephen. That was great. Good question, Jack. Great. Okay. Well, thank you, CARB. Thank you for waiting. I do want, if we could do 5 more minutes, and Chewy, if you can want to walk us through the presentation first for the stipends, and then if folks are able to stay, if we get through that quickly for the vote, then if we could talk about the letter of support, which I think just incorporated all the changes we discussed last time. So go ahead, Chewy.
Good evening, everybody. So as discussed in previous meetings, APCD has been working on getting stipends that would pay community residents on the steering committee for their participation. So this would be a revision to our contract at Estelano Advisors to authorize payments of stipends. Only community residents will be eligible for these stipends, which we are proposing to be $75 for each meeting, which will be retroactively paid starting January 2020. Next slide. So this will, to be clear, we're proposing that this would be for voting community resident members of the AB617 steering committee. And it will start from meetings starting in January up until currently. So for this process to happen, we require each eligible member that will be receiving a stipend to fill out a required W-9 form. And additionally, we also are giving the option for steering committee members to not collect a stipend for any reason. And now we'll open it up for any questions, any clarifying comments from the steering committee. I see Sarah. We can start with Sarah.
Yeah, so I noticed when we look at the guidance from CARB on this, it appears that they have a distinct definition of community members. And it says community resident steering committee members who are not paid or do not have expenses reimbursed to participate in the process. And so this should be for community members who do attend or participate in the meetings as part of their job responsibilities are not eligible for stipends. Is that going to be included in our process?
Yes, so the community members hereby on the roster, and if you go to the AB617 website to get the official roster, you'll see that anybody that has community next to their name fills that role. And folks that are nonprofit representatives that are compensated for their time here, or private entities or public agencies that also compensate their time there have their affiliation next to them.
I was just wondering because I wasn't clear to me how affiliations were identified. And you know, we've recently had a couple of meetings where some folks came in and one guy was identifying as being a community member, but was also, for example, seeming to want to sell a product. And so I think, you know, I'm not sure that in our process, we have a real clear way of identifying, you know, are you in fact getting compensated for attending?
Right. So Sarah, I think that I can clarify that. So, you know, when we do receive applications from community residents that want to join the steering committee. So there's a review process that goes with that so that we can determine there is no conflict of interest, et cetera, et cetera. So we have an application form is available on our website. I can send it to you. You know, and then the stipend is going to be given just to community residents. So that is the proposal. But,
so
you know,
just for example, though, if somebody worked for NASCO but also lived in the community and wanted to come on as a community resident, as long as NASCO wasn't paying them to do that, they could do that, right?
We would evaluate that under the application to make sure there's no conflict of interest, because that's why we have an application process, right? To make sure that, you know, the residents that are in the steering committee are, you know, live in the community and there's no conflict of interest. So that review occurs when we are selecting the steering committee members.
I just didn't recall those questions being on there because obviously I filled out one of those as well, and I think you either identified as working for someplace or a community resident, but they didn't have an opportunity to identify if you were both, for example.
So, I mean, we can make sure to modify the language to clarify that community definition.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking is to make sure it reflects the CARB guidance. Yeah.
And that the air district, when they vet the applications, include that in the affiliate. Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Jack?
Thank you. I think the stipend's a good idea. I'm just wondering, Chewy, if you have a sense of, since it's retroactive to January the 1st of 2020, how much that represents for this year thus far, and then part B is who is paying for that? Is that a CARB funded or is that APCD funded?
That's from the district, and you know we would only pay the members that are still with the steering committee and that attended the meeting. So you know to get paid, you would have to. So we have the attendance sheet that we would look at it, but that's coming from 617 funding.
And to your point, Jack,
Gotcha.
the estimate that we ran here with our ops offices to the last month's meeting, it would be about $3,000.
Just for last month, or to cover from January through last month?
January to up to last month.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions from members of the public? Great. Having none, I'll ask for a motion in a second to approve as is, with noting that there's we can clarify the community resident affiliation component.
This is David. I'll move.
Okay.
This is Larry Hoffreiter. I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. So on the charters, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to call your name and we're going to note. So unmute, please, and be ready. Ashley Rosia Tremonti?
Yes.
Jack Monker?
Yes.
Sarah Giobi?
Yes.
Wait, I called for a second, right? Someone seconded?
I did.
Larry seconded.
I just got off a plane from Chile yesterday. Sorry, guys. Larry Hofreiter.
Yeah, yes.
Elisa Arias.
Yes.
David Flores.
Yes.
Raymond Pei.
Yes.
Roman Partida Lopez.
Yes.
Jose Marquez Chavez.
Yes.
Diana Rios.
Yes.
Sandy Naranjo.
Yes.
Ted Gottschalk.
Yes.
Alicia Sanchez.
Yes.
Margarita Moreno.
Yes.
Irma's not here. Giapsi's not here. Olympia's not here. Vanessa, are you still here? No, you left. Salvador.
Yes.
Montserrat. Silvia.
Yes.
Ashley.
Yes.
We have 2 Ashleys now, and Josephine Talamantes.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. I will table the vote on the letter of support piece till next month, just to save 10 minutes. And we did have an update from Larry Hofreiter about some upcoming events and a notice for the upcoming meeting. So Larry, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi, everyone. Just 2 quick announcements. The first is I wanted to let everyone know that we're going to, I'll be sending out an invite probably late tomorrow or Thursday for our first MCAS subcommittee meeting. We landed on Tuesday, the 20th from 4 p.m. So Tuesday, October 20th from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So thank you all who signed up to be on that subcommittee, and I'm looking forward to the second announcement is just a suggestion for the November steering committee meeting. Our Port Tenants Association has recently, they're closing out a CEC grant where they demonstrated 10 pieces of electrical equipment as well as freight prioritization technology. So I'd like to propose to the subcommittee to have them come and speak to us, or propose to the steering committee that they come and just present an update to us at next month's steering committee meeting. That's all. Thank you.
And Elisa's reminding me that they need the letter vote for the letter of support for their CEC application. So if folks can take 1 more minute, I think if Shui, do you want to go real quick?
Yeah, this is just a quick update. So we revised the protocol for letters of support. So mostly everything stayed the same. The biggest change was that the letters of support will be using a approved Portside Community Steering Committee letterhead developed by APCD, and the letters will be transmitted by an AB617 coordinator or another staff person from APCD. Otherwise, everything remained the same.
Great. So we'll take a vote on this quickly, and maybe so if we can get a motion real quick to approve, and then a second.
I'll make a motion. This is David, to approve the protocol.
Thank you, David. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I believe we lost Ashley Rosia Tremonti to her kids. So Ashley, you're still gone. You're gone, right? Okay.
I'm still here, so Elliot Tremonti will vote with me.
Oh, great. That's a double vote from the Rosia Tremontis. Longer. Jack.
I'm sorry, did you call Jack? Yes, yes.
Great. Sarah?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Elisa?
Yes, and I appreciate the vote today.
Thank you for the reminder. David?
Yes.
Great. Raymond? Raymond is Roman Partida Lopez?
Yes.
Jose Marquez Chavez?
Yes.
Liana? Is gone.
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Okay. Sandy?
Yes.
Okay. Ted?
Good job, everybody. That's a yes for me.
Alicia?
Yes.
Margarita?
Yes.
Great. Vanessa is not here. Salvador?
Yes.
Montserrat?
Yes.
Silvia?
Yes.
Ashley Valentin Gonzalez?
Yes.
Talamantes?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for staying 17 minutes late. I'm so sorry to do this all to you. There was a question if carbs will be available via email. And yes, actually, I'll follow up with you after this. And then, great. So we're done. This was a great, fabulous last meeting. Sorry, I literally came back from Chile yesterday, and Chewy did a great job of handling everything with everyone while I was gone. See you next month. Thankful for you. We have a lot of new protocols in place and a SERP. Yay, a draft SERP.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Night.
Great job.
Take care.
Good job, Danielle. All right.
Jack, and I'll follow up with you. I can.
Okay, that'd be great. It just seems really low.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, thank you.